Welcome to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism with Karen Sprinkle, certified psychedelic guide, trauma therapist, and author of The Thriving Self. Drawing from over 30 years of experience in trauma therapy, embodied Buddhist practice, and immersive Eastern living, Karen explores the many paths to healing through conversation with Dharma teachers, scientists, and mental health professionals. Listen in and discover new ways of thinking about what it means to truly heal and to thrive.
Welcome, everyone, to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism. This is Karen Sprinkle, and I'm very happy to have my colleague here today named Deborah Sweet, Dr. Sweet, and I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Deborah. So Deborah is a licensed psychologist who specializes in adults recovering from childhood trauma. To treat trauma, she uses somatic experiencing, EMDR, brain spotting, the Havening technique, IFS, and principles from Buddhism. She is also a certified coach for personal growth. Before her career in mental health, she worked in the music and film businesses. She was the founder and is the founder of the Trauma Counseling Center of Los Angeles. It is her goal to help people return to who they once were or find new energy in creating who they want to be. So Deborah, thank you so much for being here. And I want the viewers to know that you and I met out of admiration, really, because I remember because I'm in the Bay Area and I had lots of clients that were transporting themselves to the Southern California area. And I remember finding your website as a fluke. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I found a therapist who has maybe as many, if not more trainings than me. And I was so impressed. I was like, I need to find this person. So I just want to say, as a trauma therapist, thank you for doing all the work that you've done and offering all the modalities and approaches you do for the greater Los Angeles area, because I think it's vitally important that you have all these different approaches to help people heal. So I just want to start by saying that.
Thank you. And I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. I'm so happy you're here. So I have loads and loads of questions for you, and I'm hoping we can go backwards in time. And if we can, I'd love to find out from you about your transition from the music and film industry to the psychotherapy field, because that's a pretty big leap. If you don't mind sharing about that.
Oh, that's an interesting place to start. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't thinking about that. That's such wow, that's like a very, that's a gear shift. I have a degree. My first degree is in film. Previous to this career, I worked at music magazine, radio station, record label, music management, music publishing, and then it kind of intermixed in there. I got a degree in film, and when I went to UCSB, and when I came back, I was working. I was working for, the last job was a company called DCI, Digital Cinema Initiatives. And it was during that period of time where they were trying to figure out how to make cinema go from film, like 16 millimeter, millimeters to pixels. So I had this amazing job, and I've been really good at manifesting things. It's very interesting. So while I was there, I had lunch with a friend. We were at Hollywood and Highland. And all of a sudden, it was just one of those like, bing, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be a therapist. Like, I'm on the wrong track. And one of the things I wanted to do is be a music supervisor. But when I learned, it really was a lot about schmoozing and who you know. I can schmooze, but I'm not a schmoozer,
Yeah.
So I examined that and I thought, well, that doesn't fit. It was about the music for me, So I had that kind of that awakening, if you will. And my adopted father had been a psychologist. And I think prior to that, I thought, well, that's what he does, or that's what he did. And he had since passed in 1999. And part of it was for me realizing my life's not going to change unless I make the changes. Because the first thought in my mind was, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in my 40s by the time I'm done with school and practicum and dissertation. And well, I didn't know I was going to get a doctorate. First, I thought I was just going to get a master's. And then I got a master's and I was like, oh, I want to go on. This is fascinating. So that I got the doctorate and et cetera, which I have a story, but I'll save that for a second. But yeah, that's how
about getting the doctorate versus a master's degree.
Well, the doctorate brought me to trauma treatment. I mean, I could tell you now, I guess.
Yeah, please share.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do want to say too that I really do believe that classic talk therapy, and I know we're on the same page, it's not as effective as trauma therapy that is rooted in neuroscience.
Yes.
Because I know for me as a young person, a therapist would say, oh, that's so sad that happened to you, something along the lines of, let's stay with those feelings. And for me, it was like, oh, great. Now I'm stuck with a bunch of feelings. And for me, it was like a downward spiral.
Yeah.
And what I love about trauma treatment and also Buddhism is that it gives us a place to go.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, like, I'm just obviously a huge fan of trauma treatment. Talk therapy can come later, but anyway. So, okay, I'll tell you this story. This is pretty amazing. First night of the doctorate program, the instructor tells us a story. He was a first responder as a therapist at Katrina. The big disaster. And he told the story. It changed my life. It gets me emotional every time. Wow. But I can tell you why. So there's a woman, he was there, and he said, when someone's in trauma and their eyes are kind of dead or glazed, and he said this woman, her son was the first boy to go to college in their family, and she had his things, and they were up on a shelf. And with Katrina, the waters kept rising and rising, and they took the box away. And he said to her, I didn't know what it was at first, but he said, okay, well, here's what I want you to do. He says, you did some resource work, essentially. He said, what is a resource for you? And she said, Jesus. And he said, okay, where is Jesus in your body? And she pointed to her chest. He said, okay, now I want you to take your hand and put the box in your hand. And I want you to even pendulate, essentially, between the loss and the resource, and so he's talking about this story. And then he, as he told the story, he started tapping her shoulders. So he started doing a little EMDR. And through the process, she came back online. Her eyes changed. There was her vision became less tunnel vision, if you will. And when I heard this story, I was just like, and there's more to it, but
sure, yeah.
I was like, whatever that is right there, I am going to experience that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to learn it, experience it, and use it. And so while I was in the doctorate program, I signed up for Peter Levine's Somatic Experiencing 3-year program. Wow. And so it really became part of the fabric of how I work. And my adoptive father, as I said, who was a psychologist, this wasn't in conversations that we had. It was about feelings, which for me, as a person who's experienced trauma, abandonment trauma primarily, that the feeling thing didn't take me where wanted to go. So anyway, I heard this story. And then I thought, oh no, nobody's going to know what somatic experiencing is. I better get trained in EMDR.
Yeah, because back then that was true. SE wasn't a big thing yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was good. And then someone told me about brain spotting, and I thought, I'm already, okay, I'll be open-minded, And for the viewers, the difference between EMDR and brain spotting, the man who developed it wrote 2 books on EMDR, and then he discovered brain spotting. And long story short, in EMDR, as many of you know, we are following the fingers, or these days it can be tapping, or it can be, and what my clients really prefer is sound. So we have David Grand, who wrote the book on brain spotting. He has a track. No one really likes his music, but they do he's got these ocean sounds.
The ocean wave sounds. Yeah.
And there's 2 different ocean sounds. There's oceanic feeling and sea change. Oceanic feeling is very kind of loud and the other one is just more gentle. So it just depends on what we're working on, but people do love it. And then of course there's a ton of EMDR music out there. Yeah. But anyway, I digress. So I was working with this woman, and she can't do a triple axel as a figure skater. Yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah. And so he's doing EMDR with her, and he's moving his fingers, and he notices her eyes kind of wobble in one spot. And he thought, that's interesting. So he said, instead of back and forth, he stopped on this one spot and had her just focus on the one spot. And all of a sudden, all this stuff started coming up. And long story short, she came back the next week, and she could do the triple axel. And he thought, oh, I am onto something. And he says, where you look affects how you feel. And once you see it, the idea of brain spots, you see it constantly.
Yeah,
people
that's true.
Say, where's a good place to get coffee? And I'm like, so coffee is up and to the right. I can't tell you why, but that's where it lives.
Yeah.
And then you see people's eyes going to a specific spot, especially if it keeps going to that spot.
That's right.
Yeah, and
or avoiding a spot too, right? Sometimes they also avoid looking at a certain region as well. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I don't think I've experienced that. It's interesting. I'll have to think about that. But that's all the nuances, and there's so much to the trainings. I mean, yeah.
So in your doctorate with this professor, it sounds like you had this epiphany where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do whatever I can to actually heal trauma. And then that's when you started to take all of these kind of certification programs to get yourself really trained. And you kept going. I mean, it wasn't just SE, it wasn't just EMDR, it wasn't just brain spotting. You just kept going even after that.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too. I think at the beginning, I had this idea of I'm going to work with musicians. I've been always helping I had a little, I don't think I mentioned it. I had a little nightclub when I was 23.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was, there's a fun story. I was sitting on Venice Beach with some friends, and I was 23. And I said, when I'm 25, I'm going to have my own nightclub, and people are going to move from room to room. And they looked at me like, yeah, right, whatever. 2 weeks later, I'm walking down the street with my friend Larry, and we passed by this space. It's got these huge windows with these monster paintings. And we went in there, and it had all these different rooms. And the guy was a painter, an artist, Matt Clements. I have not been able to find him. I've tried to track him down. I don't know what happened. But anyway, Larry elbows me, and he says, hey, maybe this is your club. So I say to the guy, this is in the 80s. What do you think about live art? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, bands, poets, performance artists, whatever. And he said, oh, sure. So I was 23.
Wow.
And I ran it for 6 months because it was very illegal. And I called it an art opening. And people came, and it was really something. So, what did I get on that? I forgot.
You were talking about your love of music. So at 23 years old.
Thank you. Yeah, I always wanted to be of service to musicians. Thank you. That's exactly what it was. And even in my little tiny club, I made it very affordable for people because I wanted them to enjoy. And then at the end of the night, even the poets would get an envelope and there might only be $5 in there. And they'd be like, oh, I'm getting paid, So I thought it would help me.
This tenacity, you've had it since you were young, this tenacity to keep going. 23-year-old starting a nightclub in LA.
Yeah.
That's
and
huge.
then I just had a feeling I just thought I was probably going to get in trouble. So I thought I better. So at its peak, I shut it down. Yeah. But that was really fun. But helping musicians. Yeah. So that's what I thought, it's kind of like, I love how it's kind of like this top layer, and then it's like, then I learn about trauma and it's like, oh, and then I learn about attachment or whatever. Oh, it's deeper and deeper. And then
and it's so interesting that a lot of these trauma models, as we know, use music, right? I mean, like brain spotting uses music, EMDR uses music, and psychedelics, which we'll get to, also uses music. Right. So it's kind of fascinating. So before we move on with the clinical piece, you briefly mentioned Buddhism, and I'd also love to know your path of how you became a Buddhist practitioner. And maybe how it's led you till today, if you don't mind sharing that.
Sure. I do want to come back to havening, so I'm just bookmarking that. And also, actually, I think it would be vital or important maybe to say a little bit about my trauma history, because when I talk about Buddhism, it's going to make a lot more sense of why it clicked for me.
Absolutely. Talk about whatever you need to. If you want to return to havening too, that works as well.
Actually, I think it would be good to do the do a little history first. Mm-hmm. So, briefly, I grew up in 15 different places between 1 and 8, so that is constant moving. It was mostly with my family, but it was also a year at my aunt and uncle when I was about 5, maybe 5.5. And then I went to a foster family. While I was in the foster family, my father died. He died of cancer. And that was one of the reasons we kept moving around, because he wasn't stable, so to speak. He didn't feel well, obviously. But I think and then my mother, actually what happened was my father died. She met another man. She remarried. She kept my brother, my 2-year younger brother, for another couple of years. And then later she put him up for adoption. So it's effed up story.
Your younger brother, your mom put up for adoption?
2 years after me.
2 years after you.
And I want to say, I asked my adopted parents, hey, would you have adopted him? And they said, of course. They were not given that option. The fact that they separated us, I still think it's criminal. It is.
Wait, I'm just curious, did you ever find out why? Like, what was their thinking process?
Well, so I'm sure as a child I was a handful. I was very enthusiastic. There's all kinds of pictures of me pointing at things. What's that? What's that? I was extremely interested in the world. Well, it turns out not all adults like that. And so at a young age, we know that symptoms of ADD or ADHD can come from trauma. And mine really was, it was all the moving, but there's also neglect in there and food scarcity. I mean, it's really sad. It's so funny. And even with all the work I've done, I still want to dissociate. It's hard. Anyway, just saying.
Yeah.
So,
actually, that's a beautiful moment to point out to the viewers of how you just caught yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't know this, but I took my hands.
Exactly.
And I put them on.
You want to share? You want to use words so the viewers know what you just did?
I was floating out of my body.
Mm-hmm.
I became aware of that. And I guess you could say I invited myself back into my body. I used my hands, put them on and also I made a motion kind of like this on my leg. Like I would say, I mean, now we're dissecting it, but it was like, also, it's okay. You're safe. You're here right now. Now. Right now is safe. There's nothing happening. This is the past. Yeah.
And what's so important, if someone's not watching the video right now, you did all of that in like under 10, 15 seconds.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it is a training. It's funny. I've been called, a client once called me a tools first therapist because I really do believe we need to get that life jacket on. So let me, if it's all right with you, teach some skills, some tools, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to say we dip the toe in, we get the toe out. We dip the toe in, we get the toe out. And by the way, when I was a young person, that was not offered to me. It was so stupid. Like, oh, that's terrible. Let's dive right in. No.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, and I think in tying that to Buddhism, by the way, it tied it into the idea of impermanence.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving and then losing my father, you know. And I will also say that I didn't know what to do with those feelings. I mean, I was 7.5. It was an absolute miracle that I was adopted at 7. I mean, this, as I've gotten older, this is a rare thing. So I just want to say I'm very grateful that happened. Yeah.
And Deborah, how old was your brother when you were 7?
He would have been 5.
Okay. Oh, so he was 2 years younger than you, and he was adopted 2 years after you were adopted.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I would ask the inner voice after I met, we're not there yet in the story. Well, yes. So when I was 16, I said I wanted to see my natural mother. My parents said no. 17, they said no. 18, they couldn't stop me. And so I reconnected with her. And when I would ask sort of the inner voice, you know, is it time to tell him, my brother, that she and I are talking? The answer was no. And I mean, was I 17? Maybe I was 19. I can't remember suddenly. Anyway, one day the inner voice was like, yes, it's time. And his adoptive family had a completely different reaction than mine. Welcomed her. It was just not a thing, whereas my adoptive family, my adopted mother, was extremely threatened. So that was because then I had the difficulty of trying to juggle the two mothers and caretake their feelings. And it was such a drag.
Deborah.
And my adopted mother had borderline features. So there's that.
Wow, my God, so much for any young child or human, even if you were 19, to have to navigate in the world. And so you were in conversation with your brother at that point? You just weren't allowed to tell him that you had reconnected with your...
Once he was adopted, then I could talk with him once he was adopted.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you guys see each other?
He got adopted to a family in San Francisco. So it wasn't like we could see each other. Yeah. I mean, we could, write letters. Of course, email wasn't around then. So
yeah,
I guess talk on the phone. Yeah. He was a very different personality than I am. Do you know NARM, Larry Heller's thing, the neuroaffective?
I know just the basics of it.
Yeah. He's got a whole, he has profiles of people and how they respond to trauma, and one type of person, if you will turn to spirituality or technology, like Christianity, or they become a computer nerd, for lack of a better term. He was just a different personality than me, actually way more dissociated. He just, in his Christian faith, that God was just going to take care of everything. And thank goodness he had that.
Totally. Yeah.
No, we were different personalities. But for me, I went the other direction. So I found substances and found them very helpful. I think they helped me survive. So, I remember my parents saying to me at a wedding, how about cutting down on your champagne drinking?
Wow. How old were you then when they said that to you?
Probably, I'm going to guess, I don't know, 9, 10, 11. So, it wasn't, they just didn't have alcoholism or that awareness in their minds. I don't
Wow,
think.
so you were drinking that amount at 9, 10, or
Oh,
11?
I don't think I wasn't. I wasn't drinking heavily.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
no,
Got
no.
it.
Like one time, I thought it'd be a great idea to bring like little airplane bottles of alcohol to school.
I
Um,
see. Oh,
that did not work out. But yeah, and then later, got into real trouble with. But then I got sober very young. It was kind of like I was kind of my early 20s, rather a little nihilistic. Nothing matters. Nothing means anything. Nothing adds up to anything. This very,
mhm.
and then luckily I did find 12 step, and it was, things do matter. You matter,
Right.
and which one feels better?
Nice. And this is in your 20s that you became sober
Hmm.
and used the 12-step process.
Uh huh.
And do
Yeah.
you still use that now to this day?
Yes.
Yeah.
38 years later. But
Amazing.
I
That's
use a
great.
combination of things, but yes. Yeah, it's a huge part of the underpinning. And there's so much wisdom there. And even
Yes.
in, there's Buddhism woven into 12 steps. So, there's
Well, it
that.
gives you the Sangha. I always love to tell my clients that are part of the 12-step program is, oh, I'm so glad you have your Sangha, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that is what I personally, I'm not a 12-stepper, because I'm not sober. But for my clients that have gone through that process, their openness and honesty is just incredible. And I believe, in my personal opinion, that's because of the Sangha environment that the 12-step program offers, where people are strongly encouraged to share their vulnerabilities and to be honest. And you don't really see that as much in other kind of, I mean, you do in the Dharma path a little bit, but the depth of 12-step work and the
Yeah. Well,
depth of
to
vulnerability
explore,
is,
explore
yeah.
what am I doing? Or there's a term there, but there are variations. What are my character defects? I also like character defenses. What's
Mhm.
my part?
Yeah,
And I love that because that makes me not a victim.
that's right.
So that's fantastic. Having said that, I do have to add one caveat. When I was newly sober, someone told me that my part was I was still holding on to it. They were obviously not trauma informed. And that was they just didn't know any better. But
Yeah,
that's a horrible misuse of that idea. Oh, you're
isn't
still
it?
holding on to it. Yeah, it is. You know,
To
took me a
say
long
that
time.
to anyone about anything, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're all hold on to something for a reason. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But then I started going to a Native American church early on. I'm part Chinook. And,
Lovely.
and then I heard talks at ashrams that were helpful. And then it kind of blossomed from there. Um, yeah. And then in 2004, I met Noah Levine, and I was in a guided meditation, and it was the best guided meditation I had ever heard. It was so skillful. And then, of course, he started before that, Against the Stream Buddhist Meditation Society. And I liked his sense of humor, and I love his talks even to this day. Then in 2000, that was 2004, I was listening to him and other people as well.
Mhm.
Then I started going to silent retreats where we
Mm.
really, as you probably know, really
Mhm.
slow down. And I think that learning to wrangle the mind is key in dealing with the idea of suffering in
Yes.
the world or for ourselves.
Indeed, indeed. And
Yeah.
and Deborah, on your own path, when you were both in your 12-step program and also when you found the Dharma in 2004, when you were working simultaneously with clients, did you notice a difference at all when you were sharing kind of your own, I don't know if you're a type of therapist that shares personal disclosure or not, but certainly I'm assuming you share some of the principles of Buddhism. Did Have you noticed a difference with your clients?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But also, somatic experiencing there's some crossover for sure. And in
Oh,
fact,
for sure. Yeah.
Noah at a certain point started to get educated in that realm. And I heard his talks change. It was really cool.
It's
You know,
so cool, so cool. Well, I know that a lot of the
idea of, when I would sit down, where there's a chair or a cushion, and just taking a moment to notice, where am I most grounded right now?
yeah.
And what sensations am I aware of in my body? And I would do that at the beginning of a 12-step meeting. I would sit in the chair for a moment, and as the meeting began, and then sometimes I would notice, oh, well, I'm a little revved up right now, or or my jaw's tight, or whatever it is. So there's that piece. And then let me also weave in at this point. Let me weave in the Havening technique.
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a woman named Dr. Kate Truitt. She was the person who basically developed a lot of their curriculum, and she actually started something called the Neuro Triad model. And I want to say to anyone who is a therapist who might be listening, that's the way to go. Get trained with Kate Truitt. Mm-hmm. She works with coaches and therapists, professionals. She is the one. She's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's really not funny about we met, we were at a Bessel van der Kolk talk. I'd have to look it up. I forget what year it was, but she walked up to me and she said, "You and I trained in EMDR 12 years ago." And I was like, wow. How are you? I mean, how
do you remember that? Yeah.
Wow. So, she started telling me about the Havening technique. And my very first thought was, I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands of hours.
Yep.
And I thought, no, I'm good. I don't need any. But then she told me her story, which is, in her book, podcast is very public. She had a trauma happen. Essentially, her fiance died a week before they were supposed to get married. So, wow. And nothing was helping her. She had done all the things, EMDR, etc. Mm-hmm. And then she found out about the Havening technique, and it changed her life. And I did think about the idea of how to, there are different ways to move through the traumas. Mm-hmm. And I think Havening is absolutely extraordinary. And how I always say it is this: it's not a replacement for EMDR or brain spotting somatic work is just a part of what we do. Mm-hmm. But it's not a replacement. If a person has written about it, talked about it, prayed about it, etc., they've done what they feel is the work, and it's not gone. Mm-hmm. Havening is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's blown my mind. And I have seen no abreactions.
I haven't seen any abreactions either, I will say. And I usually like to add in that it's especially for my kinesthetic clients, kinesthetic learners, they love Havening. For those that are more like verbal written, it doesn't land as much for them, but definitely for kinesthetic folks, like you said, it is like, wow, it gives them the tool to take home for any moment that they feel, more than EFT, more than SE. It gives them an immediate tool that is truly regulating. I've witnessed that as well, but I didn't mean to cut you off.
I've forgotten you're trained in a Havening as well.
Well, I got Kate. Kate was the trainer for my Havening. Yeah, I'm not to your level, but I did Havening 1 or the 5 days or whatever. Yeah.
And actually, do you know, or do you remember that it can also be used with cravings?
Oh, it absolutely can be used for anything.
Yeah, so
literally anything. Yeah.
The night before the training, actually, this is a great story. The night before the training, there was some preliminary work she wanted us to do. And I had been to a party the night before, and there had been extra cashews, and I love cashews.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to have I want to have cashews. I think I had a bowl there. But also, it was going to ruin my dinner, by the way. But when that craving comes up, my brain didn't care. So I thought, okay, let's try it on the craving. I felt, in my traumas, it was like, there's no way I'm going into this training sharing any of my trauma. Like that was, I'll do it on cravings. I was not going to, for whatever reason, I was just there. Like, nope. Yeah. So it's really funny I had a little, little Post-it note, and I wrote down, the craving was at between 0 and 10. It was, I think it was 8. Mm-hmm. And so I start, doing the Havening, and it went down to a 4. I think it went down to a 6, and then a 4. And then my husband came home, And all I can tell you is, and I'd already started eating them, by the way. So once if you will, waking up with the phenomenon of craving, normally I would just have to eat until I was full. Yeah. So all I could tell you is the rest of the night, I just didn't think about them. Like they just didn't even enter my mind. I had never like that happen. So then the next day I'm in the training and I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep going with this cashew thing. So I sat down in one of the practices and we just had lunch. It was after lunch. And the craving was, I think it was probably maybe 7 or 8. It was, relatively high. And I was imagining them being in this imaginary break room, so trying to really bump up that craving. And doing havening, and it dropped from let's call it an 8, down to like a 2, which I thought that's impossible. But then here's the significant part. So I'm doing it, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, I'm full from lunch. But I had no awareness of being full at all prior to that. Because it's just, for me, I'm not overweight, but my on-off switch is broken, or has been broken, I should say. So, third piece of the story, next day, I thought, okay, let's stay with this havening thing. And there's something called transpirational havening, which is to transpire.
Oh.
Do you know that one? Did you do that one?
I don't know that one.
Oh, probably in another level. Yeah. So it's, oh my God, it's so fascinating. Our client is talking and there's a word that keeps coming up. And so what we do is we're doing this havening, the brushing down on the arms. Let me back up. First, we do the initial protocol with 3 distractions. So we might be counting steps at the beach and then humming a tune and naming, 18 things you'd find at a sporting goods store. We're naming things. Get the activation down. And then we repeat the word that we were using, or our client was using. So for me, the word was yearning. I thought, okay. Oh no, it was hungry. It was hungry. So I'm doing, and we do it till it changes. So it was hungry, and then it changed to yearning. And then it changed. This was very strange. It changed to like a sound, like a baby tiger is how I can describe it. I was like, and so then all of a sudden, it's like havening isn't normally, I don't think about it as an insight-oriented modality, but it can be. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, I know what this is connected to. When I was a baby, my mother, not her fault, but she ran out of milk. And then, so I was given formula, which I did not, which I barfed up. And then finally they figured out, I think goat's milk or something. But the point is, I asked her one time, how long do you think I was without, sustenance? And she said, oh, it was very short. But I thought, for a baby, what is short?
Yeah.
A day? A day and a half? 2 days?
Wow.
And so I realized,
Deborah.
wow, going from craving cashew, I thought the party food, to holy cow, I was maybe had the sensation of starving as a baby.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I wonder what your feeling is about that for your clients too that have food cravings. I often see the abandonment cycle attached to food cravings as well. But I wonder about, the hypothesis of that being before the age of 3, that a baby's starving, and having food cravings as an adult, and what you think of that, given your own personal experience.
Oh yeah, I think there's connections to it. And I think that havening can, it's very reparative. It's incredibly, and also because I'm trained in these other things, I might be doing havening with someone and I might say, from the work of Laurel Parnell, big EMDR person. Do you know her work?
Yeah, I know of her. I don't know her personally.
So she talks about resource figures, and I always tell people I'm not going to send you into the trauma alone. So one of the things we do is she talks about resource figures as there's a nurturing figure, a protective figure, or a wisdom figure. So we might bring in, if you will, one of these figures, and it can be really life changing.
Absolutely.
And I think that ties back into Buddhism, because especially the part about compassion for self, and I think a lot about compassion for the younger self,
Yeah.
what it was doing. I think a lot of other approaches fall short
Yep.
before they get to that piece, which
That's
to
right.
me that's the pinnacle.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, they talk about that in IFS as well. But what I like
Sure.
about your story about havening is that not only did you have this transformative experience in one weekend, and you're describing it not from a therapist's mind, you're describing it from a personal experience mind. And havening is one of those techniques, not that one should start on their own, but you can do it on your own, right? Just like there's self brain spotting, there's self EMDR, kind of self SE, but havening truly is a tool that you get to take home in your toolbox. After you've worked with a therapist, right? And in that, I think gives the bridge, in my opinion, for people to be doing their self to part work in a kinesthetic way. So it's not only intellectual. I mean, we all can say, oh yeah, I know that I have this young part that feels unloved or abandoned, right? But that's still so intellectual. But once you start adding in touch, and Kate does such a beautiful job at describing how touch, I can't remember, is the second sense that we have when we're in the womb. Is that right? Do you remember that?
I don't remember specifically, to be honest, but
Yeah,
that sounds
but something like that. Like it's such a
absolutely.
primal sense that we have is touch,
Yeah.
and actually self-touch. And that's a really important tool to give our
Yeah.
clients.
Well, yeah, and she does have a protocol. I mean, like serious trauma work, work with a professional. But once
Yeah.
the activation is down, like the idea of affirmational havening. I don't know about you, but affirmations, okay. But when you add havening to affirmations, and then, they came up, this is so brilliant, with informational havening. And what that is what if? So what if today was a good day? I think about that for clients. What if today was and we don't want to say like a great day because that's too far. The brain's going to go, no, it's not going to
No, right. Exactly.
be
Yeah.
a good day. Or what if I enjoyed fill in the blank? So it's the what if, and the brain loves questions. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's, because I know that when I was introduced to affirmations many, many years ago, they'd say, well, you want to affirm something, but if you don't believe it, what do you do then?
Exactly. Yeah.
What
Right.
if? And then opening that possibility. I love havening. Yeah.
Well, what you just said, Deborah, I think is really important distinction between talk therapy and actual trauma therapy, right? Like talk therapy is, let me just give a lot of positive affirmations, positive reframe, cognitive reframe, right? But if the client doesn't feel it and they walk out of the office, it's going to fall flat. It's not going to really help them. It's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be durable. And when you add something like this, whether it's havening, brain spotting, EMDR, somatic experiencing, they feel it. It's more of a felt sense. So
Yeah.
if I may return to your techniques and everything you've learned, it sounds like on your personal journey, at least clinically, that havening has been the biggest kind of light bulb. Is that fair to say? Or what would you say?
I think for me, well, it's tough because somatic experiencing and the way I experienced life prior to that, when I was young, like in high school, I felt like a floating orb. I was not connected to my body at all. So I think to find a way to come back into the body was incredible. Having said that, later in life, I mean, the thing I love about havening is I've taught it to friends. I have a friend who recently said, "Oh, I'm still using it." So I love that it has that, and and that there's a protocol. We get the activation down, and then we can affirm something, or even at the end of a day. Sometimes it's as simple: the day is done, the day is over, the day is done, the day is over. Which
Totally.
also would be like Buddhism and impermanence. Like no matter what happened, the good news is it's over.
That's right. Exactly. Something's going to change again. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So given that we only have so much time, and I have so many questions for you because it's very rare to interview someone that has all of these trainings, right? And has walked the walk. In walk the walk, meaning you've actually applied all of these approaches to your own trauma healing. And you're a Buddhist. Would you like to share anything about psychedelics? Is that inform your work today at all? And if it doesn't, that's okay.
I would say that I did use some psychedelics when I was younger, but I would say that I didn't use them in a medicinal way. That wasn't a thing. I'd say I used them foolishly. But from what I've read and studied, I'm not a believer in LSD for trauma work. I think that sounds not like a good idea. That's just a personal opinion. Maybe some way I wouldn't buy it. I think that with in a proper setting with mushrooms, that sounds like it could be very effective. But I also feel in this area, this is where I would practice not knowing.
Yeah, no, totally.
I will tell you one thing though. I had a gentleman come in who was recovering from having used ayahuasca, and I just want to say, anyone out there, if you're thinking about it, please research your guide, because 2 years later he was having severe problems, and he did not have severe problems before that.
That's right. Yeah.
And one of the things that was going on for him is he had this feeling inside his body, kind of like almost like, not like a
snake.
Like a snake. Yeah, kind of just this internal. And so SE was actually very, very helpful for him to get grounded. Yeah. But it was really hard. So I'm a huge fan. But that's based on the little bit of research that I've seen. I think, what's the one? MDMA. That's I'm highly intrigued by that one from what I've seen. That just seems, to have a sense of a bigger picture, which is, I think, what a lot of psychedelics do. They widen that lens.
That's right.
And interestingly, I think the thing that's really significant about this is that people, whether it's on psychedelics or in trauma treatment or in a meditation experiences, the question is, how are we going to keep those experiences alive?
Exactly. Yes.
Because sometimes, sure, somebody can have a spontaneous. And by the way, speaking of that, people can't see this, but this journal I have taken this on many silent retreats and and then when I've had epiphanies, I have written them down in this book. That is how. That's one way. Let's put it this way.
That's Deborah's big book, red book. That's awesome.
And alive, right? One of the biggest things that happened on silent retreat, I realized, wow, I never stop.
Yeah.
And the idea of walking meditation, which of course is just a small path back and forth, and just that awareness of, I don't like that pressure inside. I don't have to feel that. I can stop.
Nice.
Maybe that might not sound like a lot to someone, but it's a lot for me.
Oh, I think for anyone that's an overdoer, overworker, overproducer, that probably does sound like a lot to someone. Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks, right, that have childhood abandonment, they always feel the need to do. So I think it's really important that you've shared your personal story, Deborah, today. I think it's vital.
Well, I think I'm the mindset that when it ties back into things people can do or explore, that's all I care about.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And I could share client stories, but that takes, it's just, I have enough of my own, so why not use it?
Right, exactly. And so since we have you here and we only have a few minutes left, would you share, if you can, with the viewers, that are listening, that either are exploring trauma healing and they may be a Buddhist or they may be curious about psychedelics? How would you explain why, in the beginning of our talk, you talked about why you believe in trauma therapy, right? What do you want the viewer to take away that has heard about trauma therapy, but they're like, yeah, okay, I heard about trauma somatic therapy, and they go to Google and then there's like 1,000 therapists that call themselves trauma therapists or somatic therapists. And how do you guide the client that's listening right now? What should they do? Yeah.
Well, first of all, yeah, I've met therapists and they'll say, I do trauma work. And I say, great. What modalities, what approaches do you use?
Mm.
And then you say, oh, we talk or we write. Well, I'm a huge fan of writing.
Mm.
That's not trauma treatment. So I would say, I hate to put it this way, but like, do your homework. See what are they actually trained and or certified in.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And also, your audience should know that therapists, we are not allowed to ask for reviews. So you're not going to, I mean, people
That's
do
right.
occasionally, but
Yeah.
you're not going to find a lot of reviews of therapists. It's just how the industry is, which is great because
Totally.
you
Yeah.
can have your friends write great things about you. Anyway,
Right.
so you can't really find therapy that way. And also, I will say that there was a woman, I think she did have reviews, and she was one of the worst experiences of my life. So just because, for example, someone's expensive or just because they do have some reviews, it's a personal thing. Is this going to be a fit? But, hopefully this person you'll have a preliminary phone call,
Nice.
not a secretary of some kind. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's set up an appointment. I wouldn't know if I wanted an appointment yet. I'd like to spend
Yeah.
I spend like 10, 15 minutes with people at least
Sure. Yeah.
because I want to know what they're dealing with and what's going on and can I help? And so,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's such an important question. Yeah. And I think the main thing is, to just keep seeking. That's,
Mm.
I mean, I would say that's what saved me is keep seeking, keep listening, keep incorporating what works.
Exactly. And given that you had a series of questions I sent you beforehand and you took some notes yourself, is there anything that you felt that you really wanted to say today that we haven't addressed yet?
We covered a lot of territory.
Mhm.
I did take a couple notes here. I think freedom from suffering is available.
There you go.
I
Nice.
really believe that. And I have, it feels too dramatic to say it, but it is the truth. I have suffered about what happened with my mother. And it wasn't just that she gave me away. When we reconnected, she's extremely self-focused. And that's hard. But I'm a lot more at peace with it though. And I think that's what I think is significant, that we really can work through this stuff. And that's why these different approaches are so important, that the pain that someone might be feeling, I don't know, I'm just saying it can be worked through,
It
you know.
absolutely can be worked through.
Yeah.
Yes. No matter what it is.
Yeah. And
Right.
different things work at different times for different people. I'm a huge fan of writing. My favorite kind of client is a client that will do some writing before
Uh-huh.
and then we get to do the work.
Uh-huh. Exactly. They come in and they already know their target they want to work on and
Or
things like that.
they've kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
That's right. That's
So
why I've kind
they're
of
participating in their recovery.
say that again, Deborah?
They're participating in their recovery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There must be mutual participation. And if I remember that line, if you're doing more work than your client's doing, then something's wrong in the therapy, right?
Mhm.
Like we
Yeah, I
want
don't
to be
know.
encouraging our clients to be doing the work even in between the sessions.
Well, that would be ideal.
Right. And that's why your toolbox is so useful for them. Like you actually get to
Yeah.
give them tools to be using in between the sessions.
Yeah. Speaking of tools, I want to say your book's amazing. So anyone
Oh,
out there who hasn't read it yet, I am a fan. Yeah.
Deborah, thank you so much. Well,
Absolutely.
that's why I reached out to you because I think we have the same kind of like growth mindset and get ourselves trained in as many things as we can to help heal people. And it's like, why not give people these tools, right? Like let's have everyone using these tools so that we can get really deep really quickly in therapy. So you don't
Tools
have to keep you in therapy forever. That's not our goal. Our goal is not to keep you in therapy for 10 or 20 years.
Right, exactly. I love
Yeah.
that you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many people.
Okay. Any last moment thoughts,
No, just
reflections?
thank you so much for having me participate in this. I think it's wonderful that you're doing this. And
Thank
Yeah, onward and upward.
Onward and upward, Deborah. Thank you so much, too, for being here. And with that, we will stop this episode of Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism. Thank you, everyone. And you will have access to Deborah's website in the show notes. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism with Karen Sprinkle. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To learn more or to grab your copy of The Thriving Self, visit KarenSprinkle.com. Karen and this podcast do not endorse or encourage the illegal use of psychedelics.